Hi everyone, it's the Rangers review. It's very much the morning after the night before, Chris. We've not done one of these in a little while. We're going to discuss Rangers 1-1 draw at Fir Park. Did Danny Rohl get it wrong? What does it mean for the title race? And everything in between. Chris, my day got off to a terrible start because I left my charger in the office and I had to be on Bath Street at 7 o'clock after leaving Fir Park late. Are you all right? What's your kind of immediate feelings on what we sat together and witnessed last night?
I think I might just not bother looking at our comment section and stay off social media today because there's a wave of negativity and people understandably to an extent. I think the reaction is a bit OTT if I'm honest. Was it good? Of course it wasn't. Did Rangers deserve to win the game? They didn't, but they're not going to win every single game, are they? We know the limitations of this group. We know there's going to be twists and turns in a title race, and anyone wakes up this morning saying that's it, it's done, Rangers can't win this league, I think they're need to calm down a wee bit and assess the situation.
Yeah.
It's not been the it's not been the couple of days that Rangers were hoping for. They've been looking for a favour from Hibs that didn't come. Going into final minutes at Parkhead last night, you're hoping that Livingston can hold on. And then obviously at Fir Park, you're hoping that Rangers can hold on. All of those things went against Danny Rohl last night or over the last couple of nights. But I think he's been really cool and calm and collected in everything that he's done. And to go with some of the comments that I've seen and heard this morning, people could perhaps do with taking a leaf out of his book.
Yeah, well, we'll see if your comments calm down the comments, Chris. Good luck on that.
I, I fear him. I fear him blowing into the wind here, unfortunately. But we'll see if my appeal for calm works.
Yeah, listen, we'll try and get through as many comments as possible. Obviously, a lot of you can understand it's a title race, a lot of emotion, and in isolation, Rangers were really terrible last night. Like you can't comment here. I'll get my opinion out of the way, and then we can get to some comments and some topics. The team selection, Chris. Richard says, please don't sugarcoat it, guys. This was a disgraceful performance. Motherwell totally ran over us. Managers 100% to blame. My feeling is this, Chris, and I've written a piece on the website which is probably articulates my point better than how I'll say it just now. I agree with elements of what Richard's saying. I thought it was galling how dominant Motherwell were on the ball compared to Rangers. They had 64% possession compared to Rangers 36. They did run over the top of Rangers. They absolutely did. And on and off the ball. I thought the game was totally played on Motherwell's terms. 100% played on Motherwell's terms. I think that Danny Rowe probably did get it wrong with his looking ahead. A lot of it will be framed by Sunday. As you say, I think Rangers lose the round because they going into the final 10 minutes they're ahead at Fir Park and Celtic and Hearts are both drawing. And it swings the other way and now they're 5 points behind Hearts. I think Rangers were lucky to deserve a point there last night. However, where I agree with you is Danny Rohl's overall record in the league is 18 games, 13 wins, 4 draws, and 1 defeat. I think it's something like that. It's definitely 18 games. If you said that when he came in and you looked at the wider picture, that's not bad going. And I think what he has done, simultaneously, what he has done to get Rangers back into the title race, Chris, worked against them last night for me. I feel like I make this point every single year on the Rangers review. And me and Derek argue about it all the time. It does matter how you win. A style does matter. And when we were talking about Russell Martin at the start of the season, that's the football he was talking about. It was just played by Motherwell, and it does work in Scotland. And it can. Motherwell are not a big team, and they totally ran the game last night. I just think that Danny Rohl has had to make constant sacrifices and compromises, and he has managed Rangers back into this title race with clever substitutions and clean sheets and good tactical plans off the ball and set pieces. And I thought because he got that wrong last night with his team selection and some of his subs, I thought, for example, keeping Skov Olsen on the bench, keeping Romans on the bench, but also going 2 up top when I think Rangers were struggling to get out of their box. I thought that was strange. And when that didn't work, when Rohl's plan didn't work and he couldn't change it, Because let's not forget, the second half at Parkhead was great. The first half was much like that one where Rangers couldn't establish a foothold on or off. That's when you see their root issue, which has plagued them for so long, which is that they can't really control games with the ball. They can't really control games with their possession. Does that make sort of sense? So I agree with elements of what Rich was saying. I don't think you can sugarcoat that performance last night. You know, Yusuf Chermiti has 0.9 expected goals. He needs to score one of those chances, Chris. There was a lot of ineffectual performances. I thought James Tavernier gave the ball away so much. I thought John Souttar was sleeping for that Stephen Welsh equaliser. I think Gassama, for coming into the team, really offered nothing last night. But I think you saw a team in Motherwell who haven't pivoted mid-season and have just done the same thing since the opening day of the season against Rangers. And you saw a team who have pivoted mid-season and have got so far, but that approach has limitations, and that came back to bite Rangers last night.
I did say I wasn't going to look at the comments. I might just not bother. I think people have to. We're not saying that it's okay. We're not saying that Rangers were good. We're not saying that the manager was spot on. I think we both said and we're both written, made it perfectly clear that Danny Rohl got the team selection wrong last night. I said it on the pre-match show that I was surprised by some of the selections. I wrote about it on the website. I say it again this morning. The manager made mistakes last night. I asked him about it in the press conference last night and asked him, did he have regrets over it? And if he had his time again, would he pick the same team? And he effectively said yes, because he was taking both games as a winner, and he felt that he couldn't play. I know the argument is play your strongest team every single game. That's fine in the world of Football Manager. It doesn't work in real life. You can't play the same 11 players for the next 14 games. It's not going to work. He picked a team last night that he thought was good enough to win the game. Ultimately, it wasn't, because Rangers were nowhere near it. Performance wasn't good enough for a number of the reasons that you've outlined there. But there's also individual failings within that. If you pick a side that you believe is going to go and win the game, the players then have to go and execute it. You can't have Gassama having one of those nights where completely ineffectual. You can't have, as you say, Souttar making mistakes in the build up to Motherwell goal, and you can't legislate for Chermiti not taking any of the chances, especially the one, I think it's Welsh that has the header. If you're 1-0 up, a second goal kills it. A second goal would have been huge last night for Rangers. It fell to Chermiti. It fell to the wrong person, obviously, and Rangers then couldn't take that chance. And if that goal had gone in, it would have been very different. So ultimately, it was one of those nights where Rangers couldn't quite hold on. A number of players didn't play at the level, and for everyone shouting at us, the manager got it wrong. We've said the manager got it wrong, but what has been done. Time will tell if his approach was right or not. If Rangers were to drop more points against Hearts at the weekend, that's a very different situation. And we're then on post-match on Sunday. We're on Monday morning saying the manager had a really, really bad week. If it turns out he only has a bad night, but Rangers can then go and beat Hearts, we'll be on here on Sunday and back on here on Monday, and everyone will be saying, Danny Rohl, this, that, and the next thing. What a great man he is. He's going to go and win us the league. As I said pre-match yesterday in my piece, he's done enough with that record that you outlined. He's done enough to earn the right to make these calls. He got it wrong. It happened. So that's why I said right at the top, I think some of the reaction has been a bit OTT. It's not us trying to justify it or sugarcoat it or talk around it. We've said it was poor. We've said that Rangers were rotten. We've said the manager got it wrong. But I think some of it is a bit reactionary.
Yeah, emotions are high, and understandably so, Chris, because I just guess because of the opportunity, and people have seen. This is what I think was so missed at the start of the season. This season doesn't exist in isolation. And, I am 26. I've seen Rangers win one league title as an adult, which tells you a bit about the last just over a decade or so. Emotions are high. Rangers have invested heavily. And you can understand that when especially the Skov Olsen one for me, Chris. The starting 11, I thought Rangers would go 4-3-3. I didn't think they'd go with that personnel. I was very surprised that Skov Olsen didn't come on, and you can understand why. I guess there's that play your strongest team mood because because of what's at stake, because of the level of Motherwell, and also because Rohl says in his press conference on Tuesday, basically, we go into real confidence we can win every game, and then after last night says, paraphrasing, but I maybe would have taken a draw. However, I totally agree with you that if you take the wider context, Rangers are only in this title race because of his decisions. Like, Rangers aren't in this title race because he inherited a free-flowing team. He inherited a team that had their worst start since what, the 70s, was it, or the 60s? It's been about clean sheets and margins and halftime substitutions like he did at Parkhead. And I think last night, simultaneously, just played a much better opponent. I think Motherwell are the best football team in the country in terms of what they actually do with the ball. I thought they were so impressive last night. And I just think Rangers came up a little bit short, and Danny Rohl didn't have his night. It puts a lot of pressure on Sunday. Absolutely a lot of pressure. But if Rangers do manage to win that, they are absolutely still in this race. You asked Rohl that question in the press conference, do you have regrets about your team? Here's what he said. He said, I think in general, sometimes in football, you have to pick the team before the game, not after. There were some things. Ryan had a little bit of problems yesterday after the training. It was too much to start straight into. And then you have, as I say, with Toshi and Tour and Skov, players, you have to implement them in their rhythm of the game. I saw both games together today and Sunday. I saw a little bit together, and you need an idea for both games. Let's see. Finally, it's just a draw, and we are disappointed, of course, but I take this. What you're saying about sports science does matter because, listen, we don't know if Skov Olsen is carrying something at the moment. I don't think he is. I think it's just a case of keeping him fresh. But if someone is to get an injury, if you play Dujon Sterling every 3 days and he gets an injury, then people will rightly say, "Oh, you've overused him." So it is an impossible job of a manager to some degree. With hindsight, we were sitting together in the press box yesterday and we saw that team and both went, "Oof, that's a surprise." What would you have done differently? Because again, I think the issue, as I'm outlining at the start and in the piece, is because the shape of the ball changes so much. So you go from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-2 to a 3-5-2 yesterday. That gets you the defensive solidity at points, but I don't think it builds the on-ball relationships. So then you have quite an ineffectual performance on the ball, aside from what was a brilliant opening goal and a passage of play that Rangers didn't mirror for the rest of the game. But speaking with the benefit of hindsight, obviously Ryan Nadiri wasn't fully fit to start. What else would you have done? What would you have liked to have seen?
I think the Nadiri one is the big one. Also, when we picked our sides on the website yesterday morning, we didn't know that Nadiri had that issue. Only he and the manager know how big an issue that was. The argument could be, if he could have got through an hour, would that have been more beneficial to Rangers to get an hour out of Nadiri rather than have to put him on for the last half hour? I would rather take a chance and start players if they're on that line. But manager makes that call. Really surprised that Skov Olsen didn't start. I thought he was a shoe-in to start. It's the kind of game that you are signing a player like that for. So I think that one takes a bit more explaining from the manager. Two Romans is obviously the other one. I think you have to take into account the level of opposition that he's played, but he has looked really impressive. So I'm surprised that he didn't. Clearly, Rohl wanted to try and control the midfield. That's why he went with Raskin, Chukwani, and Diomande as a three. He could easily have gone with a two and had a more attack-minded option in there. He could have played two and then had Moore at 10 and maybe brought Ant-Man in. I said pre-match I was surprised on Gassama. I don't think his form right now merits starts in big games. I think he feels more like someone who could influence games late on or later on coming off the bench. So I wouldn't have had Gassama in there. I think out of the 11 that I picked, only 5 actually starting. So one of them's a goalkeeper. That's a bit of a shoe in. So I was surprised at the way Rangers went about it. But I think you're right in what you said earlier on in the piece that you've got on the site. Part of it is a quality issue, part of it is a set-up issue, and there is only so much work you can do in both of those things. Mid-season, the set-up issue, it's hard to do that given the schedule, given the amount of game time. The quality issue is something that you can address, and they did address in January, and that's why the 4 new guys had to start. If you don't start them and you set up in that way, you have to win the game, or people are going to, as we've seen this morning, as we've seen last night. If it had worked last night and Rangers got away with it, you can say they've found a way to win, they've ground it out. That's a good result at a tricky place to go, and all the rest of it. When it goes against you and Motherwell score in the last minute, you open yourself up to the level of criticism that we're seeing from the fans.
Yeah, because also you go back to the Hibs game early on in Danny Rohl's tenure where Jack Butland saves that late penalty. Like Rangers probably didn't deserve to win that game. I can't think of others off the top of my head, but there has been a lot of these tight fixtures. Let's get to a few comments. Tons coming in, so I will try and get to as many as possible. Comment here from Aldo. He says, Josh, you don't need the benefit of hindsight to know that team selection last night was wrong. We all said it before the game. I think that's a fair point. And as you say, Chris, I don't think you and Blair echoed this similar sentiments on the pre-match show. Magic Man donates to the channel. Why are we holding on with a back 5 against 10 men? I want to come on to that because I think that's a crucial point. Rangers man thinks Danny knows there was mistakes, but is smart enough to learn. Rangers have obviously had those disappointing games against, in particular, I'm thinking Falkirk at home, Chris, and Hearts away. They've managed to find a way to win after that. That's why Sunday's so significant. I think if Rangers don't win on Sunday, they are out the title race probably, because the games are running out. So it puts a lot of pressure on that game. James says Danny has got more right than wrong this season. But John says the next game being the most important was lost on Danny Rohl's team selection and tactics last night. That's an interesting point to me, Chris, because do you know what the I don't know what you'd call it. I don't want to call it a sports science argument, but the kind of players load argument, or the taking this game in conjunction with Sunday. It reminded me a little bit of when Philippe Clement played Václav Černý only off the bench against Dynamo Kyiv. Mm-hmm. So he only played the second half. In the first half that night, Ross McCausland, I think, was playing on the right, and he had like 2-3 really good opportunities. By the time Černý comes on, the game's still tight. Rangers get a red card 10 minutes after, and they contrive to lose the game. That is the risk that I think John rightly puts there, is Danny Rohl has taken these two games together. However, I don't know, you kind of have to play the game in front of you simultaneously, don't you? Is that fair? Because, listen, as you say, if we come back on Sunday and Rangers have beaten Hearts and, Tor Rommins, who's just come back from injury, let's not forget, so he probably can't play 2 games a week, and Skov Olsen scores and whatever else, then maybe you're saying, do you know what? Motherwell away, I think, is probably, given how they played last night, Chris, it might well be your most difficult game between now and the end of the season. I genuinely think that could be the case. So maybe then you're saying it's a good point. Maybe then I was speaking to someone last night who was saying, look, Motherwell Motherwell will be confident of taking points off anyone who comes to Fir Park. That's the first goal they've conceded there since October 18th. But on the other hand, if you do go out and not beat Hearts, then I think, understandably, there will be real upset at feeling like Rangers have looked too far ahead instead of just dealing with that game in front of them.
I think that's right. I say Sunday is clearly huge for all manner of reasons now. They need to win the game, obviously, to try and close that gap. They need to win the game to try and rebuild a bit of momentum, and it's huge for the manager because he basically admitted it last night. He was taking both games as a winner rather than the old cliche of one game at a time. Clearly wasn't how he was thinking. I think he picked that team last night. He picked that team last night with Hearts in mind. And you made the point earlier on when you referenced to John Sterling, and I made it as well. I know people say best 11 has to start every single week. I think that becomes easier now that the schedule eases up a wee bit. No, there's not a midweek game until after the split. Now I think it's matched even 37 maybe as the next midweek. So that argument of best 11 every game. That now makes sense given the schedule that Rangers have come through. You mentioned also Romans arrived with an injury. Scott Olsen hadn't played a lot of football before he got here. You have to manage your squad. You have to use your squad. It's not as easy just saying that's our 11. Just go and put it on the park every single week and it'll win lots of games. Rangers have won lots of games. Should they have won more games? Yes, they could have done. Should they have won last night? They should have done because they have spent more money than Motherwell. I think overall they have more good players than Motherwell. But you have these nights. The reaction after the defeat at Tynecastle was, it's all done. It's done. Rangers won't win the league. They've managed to get themselves back into a position where they could win the league. I don't think we've ever said they will or they definitely will, because no one can say who's definitely going to go and win this title. It's still far too close to call. But Sunday is clearly huge for a whole number of reasons now.
Yeah. I should say before I forget, Chris, I always forget this in the absence of Derek Clark, who is back tomorrow from his latest adventure, wherever he's been. This video is brought to you by Willows Fencing. If you need work done, Willows Fencing are the guys to go to. You can get 10% off with the code Rangers Review, which is in the description. This comment here, Chris, that I flagged a minute ago, why are we holding on with a back five against 10? And similarly, Scott Gervin saying we sat back to avoid counter-attacks. That was the thought process, I think. That's the big issue for me, right? That's the big issue, that when, just watching back a little bit of the game this morning, that when Motherwell have 10 men, they're still able to pin Rangers back. And Rangers, even when they have a man advantage, are not able to take the sting out of the game, are not able to kill it with the ball. And that, again, that's not a new issue. Like we talked about over the last week, Rangers have added a few things in their attack in Arsenal in those wins over Kilmarnock and Queen's Park. They looked better attacking the box. But until they're a team who can, I guess, play at a level on the ball, like Motherwell, or play the games to their terms, I don't think they will win a league. And that's my concern coming out of last night. I just wonder, yes, I don't think they'll play teams as good on the ball as Motherwell. I don't think Hearts or Celtic can play as Motherwell did last night, in all honesty. Not at they're different teams. Hearts obviously are at the top of the table for a reason, but I think they're a different team to Motherwell. But that's my concern, Chris. And I think it has been all season. Again, I think it's an issue that Danny Rohl inherited. What he's done relies on him getting a lot of these decisions right, these tactical decisions, these halftime decisions that he did at Parkhead. Let's not forget that. But maybe when that falls down, or when you have Yusuf Chermiti missing those chances last night, you don't have control on the ball to fall back to. Normally, Rangers have had their shape off the ball and clean sheets and the odd set piece goal to fall back on. They didn't have that last night, and they were exposed on the ball. And then I guess simultaneously, Chermiti, I just didn't have confidence he'd score, Chris. I didn't have confidence he'd score, especially that one in the first half where he hits it right at the keeper. And the chance creation was actually quite equal. I think the expected goals was pretty equal, both about 1.3. Chermiti needs to score at least one of those chances for me. I don't think anyone. That's not a controversial opinion, I realise, but I'm kind of just throwing my thoughts into the ether there.
Oh, it does, but the fact that he misses chances doesn't come as a surprise, does it?
No,
because we've seen it. We've seen that all throughout the season. When he's in that position, we were at that end of the press box, obviously at Fir Park. We saw the Welsh header. It comes off him. We see the ball break. In that split second, were any of us confident that he was going to score? Did we think this is going to be 2-0? I certainly didn't. I doubt if you did. Without putting words in Blair's mouth, I'd be surprised if he thought he was definitely going to score. But more tellingly, not convinced that Yusuf Chermiti thought he was going to score. It was just there's the ball, I'm just going to try and kick it. It wasn't I'm going to do this, I'm going to place it, this is how I'm going to finish it. It was just fire it and see if it goes in. It's a decent save from the keeper, but you can't in that situation, You can't just fire it straight at him and hope that it's going to go through Agape's leg or go through Agape's arms. You have to pick a place, show a bit of composure, and then finish it. And that's what I mentioned earlier on. One of the things that the manager can't legislate for. Now, people will say he's playing him. Yes, he is playing him. There's only so many options. So he's already said last night that Nadiri wasn't fit to start. That's fine. That takes your 3 down to 2. Chermiti or Miovski. If Miovski was in that similar position, do you have faith that he's going to finish it? I certainly don't, because we've seen that over the course of the season as well. So Rangers missing chances is not a new thing. It's not a surprise. The hope is that Nadiri will solve that, but as we wrote on the website last week, you can't just pin everything on a guy coming from the German third division and say he's going to go and win the league because he'll score 12 goals between now and the end of the season. Will he score goals? I think he will. I think he's good enough. Come Sunday, if he's fit, he has to start. He has to get that nod ahead of Chermiti. If Rule goes differently and he puts Chermiti in again, that's then a call that will rightly be critiqued. And if it doesn't go well, the manager then has to take all the flack from that, as we're seeing this morning, as we've written and as we've said over the last 20 minutes or so. But there's only so much a manager can do in those big situations. You need Chermiti to score. You need Dujon to win the head at the back post. You need Suter to defend that situation better. These things don't fall for you. And Rangers have had a number of these things of late. It's just not falling for them. So they conceded last night. Celtic score. Hearts get a late winner. Hearts have had a couple of late winners. They had that Craig Gordon save up at Dens Park a few weeks ago. It feels like all of these moments, all of these margins, they're not quite going for Rangers right now. If that turns, it's a big if, but if that turns, then Rangers are still, and as I said right at the top of the show, Rangers are clearly still in this title race. You've got Hearts to play twice, you've got Celtic to play twice, and all of the kind of bombast and all of the excitement of we've got Celtic coming up twice and we can end their season, and we've got Hearts and all the rest of it. That has all seemed to have just vanished in the space of 90 minutes. I don't think we learned anything new about the squad last night. I think we learned that the manager got it wrong, but he's not. He's always going to make mistakes. Unfortunately, those mistakes that he made last night, both in the team that he picked and the subs, like bringing Asgard on into a game like that, for example, is pretty pointless. Asgard is going to offer nothing to the party in a game like that. So I think the manager got it wrong at the start. I think he got it wrong during the game. Crucially and most importantly, Celtic, the Rangers players got it wrong as well. Celtic managed to find a way to win. Hearts found a way to win. Ultimately, last night Rangers couldn't.
Yeah, and I guess people rightly point to the fact that it was Oxlade-Chamberlain, Celtic's new signing, coming on and scoring that goal. And I agree with you. Think of that Gordon save and the Hearts moments, but they've had players who have provided those moments. And you looked last night and you thought, where was a big Rangers performance? I thought Toshi Chukwueze did well enough in a busy midfield. I'm trying to think who else did well. Did anyone else have a good game? I thought Giga did a good job on Maswinise, to give him credit. I thought Jack Butland did his job up until conceding that goal late on, although I'm not sure how much he can do about it. But yeah, if you have, again, not to draw parallels with that Clermont season, but I think of Cyril Dessers up at Ross County, Chris, in that 3-2 game where Rangers are poor, but they're 1-0 up, and he has a chance to make it 2-0 and he misses it. That's the incisive moments you miss. However, again, my critique, and this is why I thought Scott Olsen would start, is in a game that maybe you're not going to have brilliant chances, or in a game where you're still missing a real goal threat at number 9. We know that Rangers don't score that many goals outside of that. Do you not want a player who should provide that, who probably can score a lower quality chance? I'm not saying that chance for Chermiti necessarily falls to him because of where it was on the pitch. However, I don't know. I do think it was strange to not get him on at all, especially when the subs late on, bringing on Nadiri alongside Chermiti, or even Miovski and Nadiri at the end defending their box. I just thought that Rangers probably needed a bit more pace at the top end of the park to keep Motherwell thinking about the other direction, because too often Stephen Welsh was able to run beyond Yusuf Chermiti and kind of get the better of him. Final comment we'll bring up from Bluebells Are Blue. What do you make of Roll's comments about taking a point before the game? Is that questionable mentality for would-be title challengers? Kind of covered that a little bit. I think, Chris, a lot of this is framed by what happens at home to Celtic and Hearts. If Rangers go and win those two games, they're at home, they should be favourites. They should, fitness can't be a point raised in opposition, I guess, from Rule then, because it'll be single games largely in the week. Then maybe you look back on this as a good point. If not, if Rangers don't take maximum points on Sunday, then naturally the reaction to this game is going to be really intense because of how bad Rangers were in isolation, of how much control Motherwell had, and because of this team issue that we've spent the last half hour discussing. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think this is my last show until Sunday, so I will look forward to Sunday. Let's see what unfolds. It's going to be a very interesting and a very busy couple of days. So these are the games that you look forward to. As I said right throughout the show, the title is still there to be won for Rangers. So let's see how Sunday goes, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, and very quickly, I see Scott McKenzie having subscription issues with the website using Apple Pay. Can you help? If you send me an email, Scott, I will help you. Send you onto the subs team today, so you'll be able to get my email somewhere on the website or the YouTube channel. Right, we'll leave it there. Hope everyone has a good rest of the Thursday. It's Derek and Johnny back in the morning, so you can look forward to that. We'll have the Saturday show, loads of coverage on the website as ever ahead of that huge game against Hearts at Ibrox 4:30 on Sunday. Until then, bye for now.